No tip, no trip. Some would say within this community, I am the person that they think of when you hear that phrase. Some people, they say, it doesn't matter. Just pay me whatever, whoever I'm getting the money from doesn't matter. Tipping culture in America has hit a point where people are over it. I'm going to show you some clips, some videos of some people's perspective on it. And also, I'm going to ask you guys some questions in today's video to get your perspective and what you think is going to be happening 5, 10, 15 years from now with tipping in America. Now, last night, Chris Boy from Australia, he has a channel. Go check him out. I'll put a link to his channel in the description of this video. In Australia, the tipping culture is not what it is in America. About 2.5 years ago, I did a video on this channel. You can check it out. The history of tipping in America, how it started, why it's still relevant, but why now people are fighting back against that. And that affects you and I right now on a day-to-day basis. We're going to get into those things in today's video. Appreciate you guys for being here. Hit the thumbs up. Now, let's go back before we go forward. Tipping in America started when wealthy Americans went over to Europe on vacation. They saw this tipping culture over there. It was a way for people to show off. Like, here, peasant, you can have that extra nickel. Keep the change. And it made people feel good. It made you feel better than the person that was serving you. It was a way of showing off. And those rich people brought that culture of tipping into America. We had the Emancipation Proclamation, slaves were free men and women, right? And in order for them to get jobs, they had to get jobs, and they would get jobs at service places and bars and taverns and this and that, and their employer would not pay them, but they would say, you know what, you can keep tips if people give you tips. Now, those times are very different than right now. But corporations, as the years kept going and going, said, you know what, we can keep our labor low by not paying them. Minimum wage comes in, federal government says, okay, well, minimum wage is $2.13 for tipped employees, $3, this, that, whatever. And that's how you have to legally pay them. So restaurants, bars, establishments said, well, if that's all legally I'm obligated to pay you, that's what you're going to get. And we're going to, in tipping, you're going to get paid from the consumer. Work really hard, you'll make more money. So that's a really small dose of how it has come. Right now, in some of the videos, we're going to show you some of these little clips. I'll react to them. There is a revolt against tipping. I had a gentleman on the show about 1.5 years ago or so. He wound up on Dr. Phil, talking about how he doesn't tip, why he doesn't tip, how the company should pay. And there's a growing trend. Nearly 30% of Americans, they're over the tipping thing. They're exhausted of it. They don't like it. Everybody's expecting tips without doing good service. Now, how does that affect you and I in food delivery? Now, when it comes to restaurants, it's very, very, very different. What we do is very different what they do. We're driving our automobile. They're not driving an automobile. They're getting paid from their employer. Now, some would say maybe we are or not. We get base pay. But in some cases, it equals or doesn't equal what a W-2 might pay somebody to serve. But, we don't have any protections in this type of work. And we are only making money most of the time if there is a tip. That's why no tip, no trip is important, because you need to value yourself and you got to make money. The more non-tip deliveries you deliver, the less money you're going to make. That is a mathematical fact. Let me show you guys a couple of clips. I'm going to react. I want to get your perspective right now. Tipping in America, has it become, and will it go away? Is it going to go away at some point? Is it going to change? A lot of places, well, maybe not a lot, some places have tried this. West Coast, East Coast, in major cities where the employer will pay a living wage, a fair wage, whatever that might be, 15, 16, 17 bucks an hour. And on the menus, it says tip not required. We pay our employees well, tip not required. And some patrons like that. It takes away the pressure, the awkwardness. You don't have to worry about what percentage and doing the math and sitting there and feeling obligated to do it, even maybe when you got bad service. You're just paying for your food and that's it. Most of the time there's inflated pricing with those items because at the end of the day, the consumer is always going to pay. But no tip, no trip in food delivery. Will tipping ever go away? I mean, obviously it can't. The companies aren't going to pay us more. The consumer always has to pay. But right now, driver earnings across the board, based on what you guys tell me, are down. Some significantly, you guys are making less money. You're seeing less good orders. And I think the tipping fatigue in America is crazy. Imagine being a consumer, you're trying to order on an app, you want a hamburger meal from McDonald's. The suggested tip is going to be $2. So it's a low tip for some of y'all. Imagine ordering a whole bunch of food, $100, $200, $300 from a sushi joint. The suggested tip might be 10, 15, 20 bucks. As a consumer, you're thinking, I haven't even gotten my food. And you want me to pay a fee, a delivery fee, a regulatory fee, and you want me to tip up front? I'm not siding with the consumer, but we have to sit in their shoes in order to understand why we are seeing less pay overall. Let me show you guys this real quick clip.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. New survey data finding that 30% of Americans think that tipping culture is out of control. I think I'm going to add myself to that list. This is according to a Bankrate survey that found that 2/3 of people have a negative view about tipping, particularly when it comes to contactless and digital payment prompts with predetermined tipping options. These are point of sale programs like Toast. You probably see.
So he's talking about these pre-tipped options. You go to a local coffee shop, whatever, any place nowadays, and you turn around that iPad and boop, there's a pre-tip determination. Consumers, I think, look at DoorDash and Uber Eats as that way because it gives you a default tip and you can take it away, but the default tip is there. And I think the fatigue has set in, and I think it's a big reason why there is a revolt of people not tipping.
Them at lots of different stores now. It said in its most recent report that tipping at sit-down restaurants has held steady. Yeah, got no problem with that. No. But tips at quick service restaurants fell to a 5-year low of 16.7% in the first quarter of the year. That to me is surprising that it fell, given that every time I seem to go to one of these restaurants, I'm now paying 25%. Or 20, it's 20, 25, 30.
Don't lie. It says 5, 10, 15, and maybe I'll do 10.
5, 10, 15. What stores are you shopping?
So, it's interesting. Let me get these guys off the screen for a second. Listen, how do we relate this to food delivery? These 3 people sitting on the panel, okay? The one guy said, in the blue shirt, the guy, I get it. I'm kind of fatigued out. So they're obviously, they've ordered on food delivery apps. They've gone out to eat. They go to a local coffee shop. They go wherever. And they start their day. I'll paint you a picture. They start their day getting a coffee, tip option. They order out lunch, tip option. They go out to eat, tip option. People between the ages of 20 and 35 right now are tip fatigued out. They're done. They're over it. Everybody wants a tip. All these pre-tip things, these iPads, this digital age that we're in with the squares and the Toast and all these apps, right? It's crazy. Your local cannabis shop, tip. You can go in there to get a pre-roll. They want a tip. They're asking. You don't have to give it, but the fatigue is setting in. And I think when people go to DoorDash and Uber, when people take an Uber or a Lyft ride to go to work and the tip option shows up, you do it or you don't do it, people are over it. They're tired of the big companies paying the little guys like you and I less money so they can fatten their pockets. And the companies expect the consumer to pay us the wage, a fair wage, by a tip. I'm not against it. I don't think tipping is going to go somewhere anytime soon. But I think we're going to continue to see a growing trend of younger Americans like, no, I'm against this establishment. I'm against all this tipping and all this. I don't even know what I'm getting. Who's really getting the money? They hear about DoorDash and these companies stealing tips and messing with the money. So they feel like, you know what, I'm not going to tip. I'll give them cash. Now, while I don't think that's going to happen often, I think there is a growing number of people that think that that's what we want. You guys tell me in the comments below. Would you rather have a cash tip or on the app? Me, I can't gamble with my earnings. I'm not going to wish and pray for a cash tip. Do I like them? Sure. I don't know. Maybe 1 or 2 out of 100 deliveries. Probably less than that. Probably 1 out of every, 1 out of every 200, I'd say, on average, I'm seeing a cash tip. I get them, but it's not often. If I'm crunching the numbers, it's not a lot. But I do think some consumers want to wait to see what they're going to get because they've had bad experiences, so on and so forth. No tip, no trip's not going anywhere. But the fatigue of the consumers, we have to understand it. And I don't know what we can do to control it. I really don't. I'm going to show you guys one more clip. Stay with me here. Okay, I'm going to bring this one up here. And let's see. Let's go there. Because I think that it's very important to understand the consumer aspect of it and how it's affecting us. Because I think the money can be there for a lot of us, but the tipping fatigue is here to stay. Let me bring this up for you guys. I want to play this small little clip for you guys as well. Just follow along and listen here. This is a little story about a lady who works in a restaurant. We're going to hear from the owner of this establishment.
In a restaurant in most states, it cuts against the worker's wage rather than being something on top of the wage.
Lupe, who's been working at Cisco's for 10 years, makes the federal sub-minimum wage of $2.13 an hour. She works alongside her mother-in-law and cousin. She told us while there are days when she makes only $30 in tips, she typically makes about $200.
It's difficult knowing if somebody goes home not making a lot of money. You could have a good day at work being a banker, and you could have a bad day at work.
So
Same
this
goes
is
for
the owner
a pharmacist
talking here.
or anyone. Wages are fluid, but I think if you work hard, you're going to get tipped more.
Cisneros says when he and his partners took over the restaurant in 2017, it wasn't profitable.
Wasn't something that we bought being like, oh, we've got some honey hole here. We bought history that we knew continued to live. We're here to ensure everybody has a very fair, livable wage and can go home to their families and look in the eyes and be proud of where they work.
Between 2018 and 2022, annual revenue nearly doubled. Their goal is a 10% net profit margin.
10% is a lot higher than a lot of other restaurants. Why not raise?
So 10%, I want you guys to remember that margins in restaurants are very, very, very low. So these guys, this owner and many others, and DoorDash included, and all these gig apps, they understand their numbers and they say, we want to make this amount per quarter, this amount at the end of the year. We want our profits and our EBITDA to be this. So we got to have our labor amount at this amount. We have to really work hard because the margins are so small, 10%. So think about that. Let's say your restaurant, maybe this restaurant might do, let's say it's $2-3 million a year in sales. I'm not sure, but let's just throw that number out there. It's a very common number for some establishments, a couple million a year. What is 10% of that? Think about that. 10% of that's what the owner, after all the bills are paid and everything, is going to take home. If tipping went away, he's going to have to pay his servers more. He's going to have, it is what it is. So then what is it? 5%? Is 5% reasonable to a multi-million-dollar business? 5% is what you get at the end. Seems kind of small, right? But I want us to listen to this gentleman's perception here. His ideas of it.
The wage.
There's months that we don't get anywhere near that margin. It's a little bit more of chess that we're playing. So our revenue is not what a lot of restaurants are, right? So if you're at a barbecue place, you're probably doing $10 million a year in revenue. While they might operate on a lower margin, they still probably net a lot more than we do. We have to ensure that our margins are around where they are. Otherwise, this business is not functional.
In 2022, labor alone accounted for nearly half of the restaurant's total costs. Cisneros told me he and his partners have never taken out a salary from the restaurant. He has a full-time job as the founder and president of Backyard Ventures, an advertising partnerships business.
This is to feed all of the families that work within these walls and continue the lineage of the restaurant operating. While we'd love for everyone to make as much.
So these guys aren't even making money. They're making money doing other things, is what he just said. But they don't take a salary from the actual business. But they have these businesses in order to make sure that people in his community can make money. And this lady here says some days you make $30. On average, she makes $200 a day. Sound familiar? I think a lot of you full-timers might be able to make $200 a day in DoorDash, right? And that's what she makes as a server. Different type of job. But at the end of the day, we still have these big companies, okay, making most of the money, and us little guys not making a whole lot. At the end of the day, $200 a day without any protections, no insurance, no profit sharing, no 401k. Most of us aren't putting in any of that if we're DoorDash drivers, right? $200 a day is not a lot of money. Some of us think it is. It's not. If you think long term, it's not, right? And if tipping went away, how would that affect you and I's money? I think if anything, if it went away and regulations were in whatever, and businesses had to pay us more, which I can go back and forth on this topic, but on how I feel about it. But I think the long-term impact is there'd be less opportunities for you and I. Less people will be able to use this as the gig apps. And overall, it could be detrimental. The other side of that argument is, well, these companies got the money. They need to pay us more. They should pay us more. They need to be mandated to pay us more. They need to be mandated to pay us a living wage. These companies like this guy here and a McDonald's or whoever else, tipped or not tipped, need to pay more to their employees because they're making money. Dollar General is a company that does very well. Dollar General every year has seen their profits soar. They pay their people 12, 13, 14 bucks an hour. They pay a salaried manager, a GM of a Dollar General, maybe 50,000, maybe 60,000, 70,000 to be a district manager, and you got 5 or 6 locations. For some of y'all, that's great money. For others, it's not. The richer get richer, the poorer get poorer. Where are we in this equation? We're not rich. None of us are. We're not. Now, is that important to you? Yeah, it is what it is. But tipping in America, people are exhausted of it. They just are. They're exhausted. They're exhausted of seeing the fat cats get fatter. And most of us, me, you, Lupe, the lady in the video, right? We're just getting by day by day. I think most of us can relate to that. We're getting by day. And most of the people that use the apps are also getting by day. Most consumers that use the DoorDash app are just like you and I. They're probably in a similar tax bracket. I know sometimes we deliver to big fancy homes. Yeah, sure. Most people that order on DoorDash, that order on Instacart, that use Uber or Lyft are regular folks like you and I. So us poorer people, lower class, whatever you want to say, tipping started in that way. We're just servicing one another, and the fat cats are getting rich. I'm not mad at them for that. But will tipping ever really go away? What's the good? What's the bad? What are the long-term, short-term benefits or bad things from it? I'm still Mr. No Tip, No Trip. I think you cannot make good money if you continue to just deliver to people that don't value you, tip you, and understand the way it works. But is the way it works working? Is it really right? Should it change? Are we just all sheep out here just going along with whatever is normal and, oh, I should just tip this person. I should tip that person. I don't know. I value myself, my automobile, and my time. And I realize that the way the opportunities are in a gig economy, I have to get tips to make money. But the growing trend is they're done with it. They're sick of it. So when we go to those nice fancy homes, the nice duplexes, you drop off that sushi order and they only lift you $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 and you feel the tip isn't sufficient. It's because those people don't look at it the way we look at it. They just don't. They're looking at it like $5 is enough. What are they doing? They're picking up and dropping off my food. How hard is that? Should tipping go away? Should it just be miles to money ratio? You live 10 miles away. This is what it's going to be. This is your service charge. We're going to give that to the driver. That's that. Or is the trend going to continue to where DoorDash drops the base pay? Right now, it's $1 per order on Stacked with DoorDash. $2 base pay for DoorDash Stacks. So DoorDash is valuing you at $1 a pop. Instacart as low as $4 base pay. I saw a base pay of 17 cents somebody sent me today from Uber Eats. Now the expected payout was $6, but Uber only paid 17 cents. Should the companies come out of their pocket more? Can they afford to do that? Or should we continue to look at the consumer to pay most of our wages? That's the question for today's video. I wanted to show you guys those little clips. I could make this an hour. I could do a whole live on this. Maybe I will. Tipping culture in America. Listen, I'm Mr. No Tip, No Trip. I believe we deserve tips for the work that we're doing. When we're delivering most of the time non-essential food items, and we're doing a service in our automobile, and we're doing something that most people can do themselves. And I don't want to hear, well, what if they don't have a car? What if they're disabled? I get it. But you don't need that McDonald's. Nobody ever does. I mean, 99.9% of what we deliver is non-essential. essential. They can get it themselves, and if they don't have a vehicle, somebody could bring it to them. So to not tip your driver is just kind of rude, regardless if you think it's right or not, and if you know the history of tipping and what it really is about and what it entails, and how people are just kind of over it. You should still tip your delivery driver. I believe that. But at some point, I think the trend is going to continue of people not valuing us and what we do. I think they look down on us as drivers, and I think we're going to continue to see less and less tips overall. And the people that will always tip and tip well, that'll probably stay the same. But the ones that are on the fringe or tip $2 or $3 regardless, that 2 and 3 eventually could go to 0, depending on their experience and depending on how the media continues to talk about this and the stories and how people view these large companies. I think that they're sticking it to them sometimes and not realizing that actually they're sticking it to us because the system has some flaws. I still think the gig economy is a great way to make money, more at a side hustle pace, part-time pace. But for you full-timers out there that are doing this, how long do you think this will last? Do you think it can go another 20, 30 years? Or do you think it's less than that? These gig apps are changing. The way people get food is going to change. Robots and automation, they're coming. Whether you like it or not, they are coming. Where do you fit in this equation? How long do you think we can sustain this? And will we continue to see the trend of tipping fatigue in America? Appreciate you guys for watching this video. A little longer than I would have liked, but I wanted to just get my thoughts on that, ask you guys some questions. And also, what do you guys tip when you go out? Do you tip really well because you're in a tipping environment and most of what you make is on tips? Or do you not tip very well, and why? I want to hear you guys' comments, your perspective in the comments down below. And it's interesting. No tip, no trip is still a thing, but I think we have to continue to understand there's a whole nother side of the equation, right? Something to think about. You guys are fantastic. I'll see you on the next video.